He told everyone I fell that it was an accident. Everyone believed him. But I know the truth. Every hit, every lie, I remember it all. And one day, the world will see him for what he really is, and he won't be able to stop me. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories about truth, identity, and redemption. Part 1. The Lie That Saved His Reputation. The room smelled like antiseptic and regret. For a second, I didn't know if I was alive or just dreaming inside the pain. Then the beeping, the cold, the burn of air in my lungs, I realized I was still here. A nurse leaned over me, her eyes soft, worried. "You're lucky, sweetheart, you took quite a fall." A fall, that's what he told them. When I turned my head, I saw him, Michael, standing by the window, hands folded, face pale but perfect. The kind of perfect only a liar can wear. "She slipped on the stairs," he said, his voice breaking just enough to sound believable. And everyone believed him. I didn't speak. My mouth hurt too much. My ribs felt like broken glass under my skin. But even if I could speak, what would I say? My husband did this. He'd find a way to twist it again. He always did. He'd cry, beg, promise to change. Then, behind closed doors, he'd remind me who really held the power. I used to think love meant patience. Now it just felt like a slow death in a beautiful house. That night, when the nurse stepped out, he leaned close enough for me to smell his cologne, the same one that used to make me weak. "You better not ruin this for me, Sarah. Everyone's watching. Smile when they come in." I smiled, because that's what he trained me to do, but inside me something snapped. When he left the room, the nurse came back. She didn't ask questions. She just looked at me, really looked, the way women sometimes do when they already know. She slipped a folded note into my hand. "Call this number when you're ready to stop lying for him." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were fire. I hid the note under my pillow. My fingers trembled against the paper like it was a secret doorway I wasn't brave enough to open yet. That night I couldn't sleep. Every blink brought back flashes, his rage, his voice, the sound of glass breaking, my body hitting the wall. But beneath all that fear, I felt something new. Fire, quiet but alive. I realized then maybe I couldn't fight him with strength, but I could outsmart him. I'd been silent for too long, and silence had almost buried me. So when the doctor came in the next morning and said, "You're lucky it wasn't worse," I smiled faintly and replied, "I know, but next time it might be for him." He blinked, unsure if he'd heard me right. Michael walked in right after, holding flowers like forgiveness. White lilies, pure, perfect. I stared at them and thought how fitting they'd look on his grave. When he leaned close to kiss my forehead, I whispered just loud enough for him to hear, "Next time, you won't get to lie." He froze just for a second before smiling again, pretending nothing happened. But I saw it, the fear. That night, the nurse's number burned a hole through my pocket, and I made a plan. For the first time in years, the pain finally had a purpose. I didn't know it yet, but the next time I'd see Michael's face, it wouldn't be in my home. It would be on every screen in the city under flashing red lights with the words, "Breaking news." Part 2, The Seed of Revenge. The sun rose slow that morning, but I didn't feel its warmth. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and faint perfume, his perfume, lingering as if he'd left a ghost behind. I traced the folded note in my pocket like it was a lifeline. Every crease, every sharp edge reminded me that someone, somewhere, knew the truth, and they were giving me a way out. I watched Michael from the corner of my eye. He moved around the room, smooth, rehearsed, flowers in hand, smiling at the doctors, smiling at me, smiling like a man who believed his lies were immortal. I let him smile. Inside, I plotted. Every small motion he made, every flicker in his eyes, I catalogued. Patterns, weaknesses, openings. I had been trained to be silent for years. Now I would turn silence into a weapon. The nurse returned quietly, placing a small cup of water on the bedside table. Her eyes met mine again, a flicker of reassurance, a signal. "You're not alone." I slipped into the bathroom, the door clicking shut behind me. My reflection stared back, pale, bruised, but unbroken. I traced the shadow under my eye with trembling fingers. Every mark, every ache was a reminder, not of weakness, but of power, of survival, of fire that refused to die. I dialed the number from the note, heart hammering. "Hello," a calm, firm voice answered. I need help," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "Then you're ready," the voice replied. "We've been waiting." Waiting? That word reverberated inside me, like a drumbeat guiding my next move. Someone had seen him before, had cataloged his lies, his manipulations, and now they were offering me a path I never thought possible. By the time Michael returned, pretending to chat with a doctor, I had made the first decision of my plan. It wasn't violent. Not yet. It was precise. Surgical. I smiled faintly, holding back words that could tip him off. He leaned down to adjust my pillow, murmuring softly, "Rest now, love. You need your strength." Strength, yes, I would need it. But not the kind he thought, not muscles or endurance. I needed cunning, observation, patience. When night came, Michael finally left. He said he had appointments, but I knew better. He liked to parade control while everyone watched, and now, without an audience, he felt invincible. That was the mistake. I opened the note again, reading the instructions carefully. Step by step. This wasn't about revenge as he might imagine. It was about exposure, about taking the spotlight away from him and placing it squarely on the truth. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Outside, the city lights flickered through the hospital window. Somewhere out there, the world waited, oblivious, blind, unaware that soon they would see him as I had. A liar, a manipulator, a monster hiding behind charm. And when that time came, there would be no flowers, no rehearsed tears, just truth. I pressed the note to my chest, feeling its weight. Not heavy, not oppressive, empowering. Because the fire inside me had grown, and now it burned with a purpose. I didn't know it yet, but the next move would force Michael into a trap he wouldn't see coming. And when it happened, the entire city would watch him fall. Part 3, the first move. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Michael's laughter from last night still lingered in my head, hollow and taunting. I traced my fingers along the edge of the folded note again. It felt like a secret map, leading me somewhere I hadn't dared to go before. Somewhere dangerous, somewhere freeing. I stood at the window, watching the city pulse below, lights flickering like tiny fires. I remembered every cruel smile, every sharp word, every time he made me doubt myself. And I realized he had underestimated me. Badly. I started small, emails, texts, tiny breadcrumbs for people who had been in his orbit for years, people who had seen the charming mask slip, even if only for a second. I wasn't reckless, I wasn't angry in a way that would get me caught. I was smart, patient, calculated. I laughed quietly at the memory of last week, when he had stormed into the kitchen, yelling at me for something I didn't do. He didn't even know what real fear was yet. Then I felt my chest tighten. A wave of memories, broken glass, slammed doors, nights spent crying silently into my pillow. And I hated that I loved him for moments when he pretended to be someone else. The lies we tell ourselves. I shook it off. Focus. The note said step 1, plant doubt where no one expects. I logged into his accounts, tracing emails, messages, tiny secrets he thought were invisible. Every slip, every misstep I documented. The adrenaline was intoxicating. My heart raced, blood pumping like thunder in my ears. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was plotting. And there was a thrill to it, a power I hadn't felt in years. By noon, I had the first set of files ready, little snapshots of truth, hints of the man behind the mask. I smiled, teeth clenched, feeling that fire again. He would never see this coming. And yet fear whispered in the back of my mind. One wrong move and everything would explode. One misstep and Michael would spin it, twist it, and the world would think I was the villain. My hands shook just a little, but I swallowed it, because the risk was worth it. Every damn risk. That night he came home early. I pretended to be asleep, letting him walk in like he owned the space. His cologne, his fake charm, even the flowers he brought again, it was all predictable. and I smiled to myself in the dim light. He was predictable, weak, and now he was walking into my trap. I whispered under my breath as he kissed my forehead, "Sleep tight, liar. Your mask won't last." He paused, like he felt the words scrape against his skin, then shrugged them off. That smugness would be the first crack. I stayed awake for hours, reviewing every email, every message, every tiny piece of evidence. The fire in my chest burned hotter. I wasn't just ready to take him down. I was alive for the first time in years. Alive and untouchable. And then it hit me. The perfect first move. Not public, not messy, subtle, invisible until the right moment. And when it hit, oh, he would never recover. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. A laugh bubbled up, soft and dangerous. Yes, it was finally beginning. Tomorrow, Michael would wake up thinking it was just another day. But by sunset, the first domino would fall, and his perfect little world would start crumbling before his eyes. Part 4, The Domino Falls. The morning light cut through the blinds, painting stripes across the floor. But I didn't notice. Not really. My eyes were fixed on Michael as he moved around the apartment, humming softly, pretending everything was normal. "Coffee?" he asked, leaning against the counter, that fake smile plastered on his face. I nodded, voice barely a whisper. "Sure." He thought he was charming, smooth, invincible, and for the first time in years, he was wrong. I pulled out my laptop, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The first domino was ready. Just one subtle email, a tiny hint of doubt to someone who had seen cracks before someone he thought he could manipulate. One ripple. That was all it took. As I typed, flashes of the past hit me: slammed doors, broken glass, the bruises I hid so carefully, nights spent crying silently. And in that memory, the old fear burned like ice in my chest. But then a different fire flared. Power. Finally, I could fight back. Michael wandered closer, humming, picking up a pen from the counter. "You okay?" he asked, his tone casual, but I heard it, that underlying expectation that I'd obey, that I'd act small. I looked at him, soft smile, eyes steady. "Yeah," I said, letting my lips twitch just slightly. "Better than okay." He frowned. "Better than okay." I laughed lightly, almost a sigh, almost a tease. "Yeah, just feeling alive." He blinked, caught off guard, then shrugged. He had no idea. None. That little pause told me everything I needed to know. He still underestimated me. And that made my chest tighten with thrill. By noon, the first domino had fallen. The person I had subtly reached out to responded cautiously, questioning Michael's version of events. I felt my pulse quicken. The ripples had started. And as I watched him laugh over the phone later, completely unaware, my smile was quiet but sharp. Later, Michael came home early, flowers again, charm dialed up to 11. I let him place them in a vase, my eyes calm, but inside, my heart raced. Each detail I observed, the slight tremble in his hand, the way he avoided my gaze, fed my plan. Every movement was a note in the symphony I was conducting. Dinner was silent, tense. I sipped my wine slowly, letting him dominate the conversation while I cataloged his every word. Patterns, weaknesses, openings. I had learned to be invisible while plotting. He would never see it coming. That night when he left for his meetings, I sat at the window, watching city lights flicker like tiny fires. I pressed the folded note from the nurse to my chest, feeling its weight. The first domino had fallen, and I could feel the chain reaction starting. A low laugh escaped me, soft, dangerous, alive. The fire inside me roared hotter than ever. He thought he owned everything, but the first crack had already formed. Tomorrow, the ripples would spread, and Michael would start noticing something is off. But by the time he realizes who's behind it, it might already be too late. Part 5, The Ripple Starts. The apartment felt almost alive that morning. Quiet, tense, like it was holding its breath. I sat at the table, coffee untouched, tracing the edges of my laptop. Every move I had made yesterday, every tiny seed of doubt I had planted, now rippled outward, unseen but unstoppable. A soft ping from my phone made me jump just a little. My pulse spiked as I opened it. Someone had noticed, hesitated, questioned Michael subtly, nothing accusatory, nothing reckless, but enough to make the first ripple. I laughed softly, almost a sigh escaping my lips. "Finally," I whispered. Fire burned in my chest. The thrill of it, quiet but fierce, made my stomach twist. Oh, it felt good, powerful, alive. Michael appeared in the doorway, flowers in hand again. Roses this time. His grin was perfect, practiced. "Good morning, love, feeling okay?" I smiled faintly, sipping coffee like nothing was happening. "Better than okay," I said, letting my voice carry just enough edge to make him pause. He blinked, confused, adjusting the flowers in the vase. "Better than okay." I shrugged lightly, almost teasing, almost amused. "Yeah, alive." He froze for a split second, and I saw it. That tiny flicker of doubt, just a whisper of unease. My chest tightened with satisfaction. He thought he still controlled everything. He didn't even realize the game had changed. I spent the afternoon monitoring. Every email, every subtle hint, every glance someone threw his way, cataloged in my mind. The ripple was growing. Someone had questioned him again. A text here, a hushed conversation there. He was starting to feel the shift, though he didn't know why or how. By evening, Michael was home early. I let him talk, smile, dominate the space, all while I observed every twitch, every flicker of ego, every carefully timed laugh. Patterns, weaknesses, openings. I had been invisible for too long. Now, invisibility was my weapon. Dinner was silent, tense. I sipped my wine slowly, letting him ramble while my mind worked like a trap, snapping into place. Every smile, every word, every movement he made was catalogued. He couldn't see it yet, that's what made it delicious. Later, alone, I reviewed the evidence I had gathered, subtle slips, overlooked secrets, the tiniest inconsistencies in his carefully curated life. Every domino was set, every ripple positioned. And tomorrow the first real wave would hit. I leaned back in my chair, letting a soft, dangerous laugh escape. The fire inside me burned hotter. Michael didn't know it yet, but the walls of his perfect little world were already trembling. By tomorrow, someone he trusted would question him out loud, and for the first time, he'd realize that his lies weren't invisible. And when he does, he'll have no idea who's behind it. Part 6, Cracks in the Mask. The office smelled like stale coffee and ambition. I had been watching, waiting, tracking every move Michael made since the ripple started. And now the first cracks were showing. I watched from my corner, heart pounding, as one of his colleagues hesitated mid-sentence. A flicker of doubt passed their eyes, quick, subtle, but unmistakable. Michael didn't notice. Not yet. His mask was still perfect, but fragile. I bit the inside of my cheek, a soft laugh escaping. He thought he was untouchable. He thought charm could cover everything. But fire has a way of finding cracks in stone. I remembered last night, his laughter echoing through the apartment, that smug, rehearsed grin. God, the memory twisted in my chest, a mix of disgust and excitement. I almost shivered. Almost. Every small misstep I had seeded yesterday now bore fruit. Emails questioned his stories, whispers in the office rippled subtly, a text here, a glance there. And the best part? He didn't see it. He couldn't. That thrill, that adrenaline, it made my pulse spike like electricity. By mid-afternoon, he faltered. A phone call caught him off guard, and the hesitation in his voice was delicious to witness. My chest tightened with satisfaction. The first domino had fallen. Now the cracks were spreading. Back at home, Michael came through the door, flowers in hand again, and that perfect grin on his face. "Hey, love, rough day?" he asked, oblivious. I tilted my head, soft smile, eyes calm but sharp. "Not so much," I murmured, letting the words hang. "Someone's noticing things, are they?" He froze. My chest tightened at the subtle fear I saw flash in his eyes before he forced a laugh. That flicker was all I needed. I had planted the seeds. Now the roots were growing, and soon they'd strangle everything he thought he controlled. Dinner was quiet. I let him talk, dominate, spin his charm over the table. I sipped my wine slowly, eyes flicking over him, cataloging every twitch, every nervous laugh, every fake smile. Patterns, weaknesses, openings. I had been invisible for too long. Now, invisibility was my weapon. Later that night, alone, I reviewed every tiny crack I had uncovered. A forgotten message, a hesitant glance, an email forwarded without thought. The city outside shimmered through the window, distant and indifferent. But inside me, the fire burned hotter than ever. I leaned back in my chair, letting a soft laugh escape, low and dangerous. Fear, excitement, triumph, all coiled in my chest. Michael was starting to notice, and every hesitation, every doubt that flickered in his eyes only fueled my determination. This was just the beginning. He had no idea what was coming. None. And when it hit, oh, he'd wish he had never underestimated me. By tomorrow, Michael would feel the first real consequences of the cracks he ignored. And when the world finally sees him for what he is, he'll realize too late that the trap was set by the one person he thought he controlled completely. Part 7. The panic sets in. The office felt heavier that morning. Michael's usual swagger was off, like a mask slipping without him realizing. I watched from the corner, pulse racing as he fumbled through conversations, voice too sharp, laughter too forced. Someone cleared their throat mid-meeting. A colleague hesitant, just a hint of doubt barely visible. But Michael's eyes flickered panic just under control. That tiny crack spread like wildfire in my chest. I smiled, teeth barely showing, feeling that dangerous thrill. Ha, he's human, weak, predictable. I almost laughed aloud. God, the adrenaline, every step he took, every word he mispronounced, every flicker of insecurity, I cataloged it all. His empire of lies was unraveling, and I was standing in the eye of the storm, calm, composed, untouchable. By afternoon, the ripples were impossible to ignore. An email chain questioned him openly. Whispers in the office grew louder. People exchanged glances, unsure, hesitant. And Michael, he tried to control it, tried to charm, tried to force the confidence that had fooled everyone for years. It failed. I could see it, the twitch in his jaw, the stiffness in his shoulders, the tiny shake in his hands. Panic. Pure, unfiltered panic. My chest tightened, a mix of excitement and satisfaction that made me shiver. He didn't even know it was coming, and I couldn't stop smiling inside. Back at home, he walked in early, flowers again, the same rehearsed grin. "Rough day?" he asked, voice uneven, trying too hard. I looked at him, soft smile, eyes steady, but inside fire. "I'd say chaotic," I murmured, letting the word linger, letting him feel it. His eyebrows shot up. "Chaotic?" "Yes," I said calmly, sipping my wine. "Things aren't as perfect as you think." He faltered, just for a second, that's all I needed. Panic flickered across his face, and I could almost hear the gears turning, the fear creeping in. He didn't understand yet, but he would. Oh, he would. Dinner was silent, heavy. I let him dominate the conversation, laugh, charm, but I cataloged every twitch, every fake smile, every subtle falter. Patterns, weaknesses, openings, my weapon. Invisibility turned into precision. Later, alone, I traced the bruises on my arms in the dim light, remembering the nights he controlled me with fear, pain, and manipulation. That memory fueled me. Fire roared in my chest, sharper than ever. He was starting to crumble. He had no idea who was orchestrating this. I leaned back, soft laugh escaping, low and dangerous. My pulse raced. Every hesitation, every crack he exposed only made the trap tighter, the net closer. Panic had set in, and he hadn't even realized it. By tomorrow, Michael would make a mistake, a real, visible one. And when it happens, the world will start seeing the man behind the mask. And he won't know who's watching or waiting. Part 8. The Unraveling. The office was buzzing, but not with the usual energy. Whispers floated in corners, eyes darting, hushed conversations slicing through the hum of keyboards. Michael stormed in, suit pressed, hair perfect, but his eyes told a different story. Panic, frustration, confusion. I watched from my usual spot, heart hammering in my chest. The fire inside me roared, louder with every falter he made. Finally. The first cracks weren't just visible, they were spreading, impossible to hide. He tried to hold a meeting, voice confident, tone commanding. But people hesitated. Small questions slipped through, subtle, careful, that no one dared ask before. The kind of questions that plant seeds and make even the strongest ego tremble. Michael, about the Henderson account," someone began, voice shaky. His grin faltered almost imperceptibly before he smoothly tried to cover it. Too smoothly, too fast. That hesitation golden. I leaned back, fingers lightly drumming on the table, a soft laugh escaping me. Thrill, satisfaction, a little fear, all mingling together like electricity. My chest burned with the delicious power of it. He's human. He's fallible. He's finally visible. Back home, Michael tried to charm me again, flowers in hand, roses wilting in the late afternoon light. "Rough day?" he asked, grin fixed. I tilted my head, soft smile, voice low, calm but edged with fire. "You could say the walls are starting to shake." He froze, blinked. Just a fraction of a second, but enough. That flicker, panic brushing the surface of his charm, made me shiver with excitement. He didn't realize it yet, but his perfect little world was unraveling. Dinner was tense. I let him talk, dominate, charm, but my mind cataloged everything. Every twitch, every falter, every forced laugh. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years, sharp and untouchable. By night, I saw the first real consequence of my plan. An email forwarded to multiple people questioned one of his major deals, subtle, indirect, but damaging. Panic had moved beyond flickers. The cracks were showing. The mask was slipping. I stood by the window, city lights shimmering like tiny fires, reflecting my own heartbeat. Fire, thrill, fear, satisfaction. Every domino I had set was falling into place. The trap was closing. I pressed the nurse's note against my chest, letting its weight anchor me. Years of pain, fear, manipulation, all transformed into something sharp, precise, unstoppable. A soft, dangerous laugh escaped me. The first real wave had hit. And Michael, he had no idea who was behind it. By tomorrow, the first public mistake will hit the news, and his perfect life, the one he built on lies, will start to crumble in front of everyone. And when it happens, he won't know who's watching or waiting. Part 9, The Collapse. The city woke to headlines I had carefully orchestrated. Michael Caldwell under scrutiny, questions rise over major deal. I scrolled through my phone, heart hammering, a soft laugh escaping me, a mix of satisfaction, thrill, and disbelief. Finally, the world would see what he really was. I watched the chaos unfold from my apartment, city lights shimmering like tiny fires below. Michael's phone blew up with calls, emails, messages, all urgent, all panicked. That panic, that desperation, it was intoxicating. He thought charm could fix everything. He thought lies could hold up under scrutiny. He was wrong. I remembered the bruises, the slammed doors, the nights I lay awake hearing his voice in my head, convincing me I was powerless. But now, I was the storm, and I loved it. By noon, the first whispers had turned into open conversations in the office. Colleagues looked at him differently. Suspicion lingered like smoke around him, and I watched it curl and tighten like a noose. His mask of perfection cracked further with every glance, every hesitant question, every doubting whisper. Michael tried to speak at a meeting, voice strong, eyes commanding, but his words faltered. The weight of everyone questioning him, the tiniest cracks growing, made him shake slightly. His confidence, once untouchable, was crumbling. And I, from the corner of the room, felt a thrill sharp enough to make my knees weak. Back at home, he tried to charm me again, flowers in hand. Roses, still slightly wilted from his panic-filled commute. "Rough day?" he asked, voice strained, smile tight. I tilted my head, eyes calm, voice low but pointed. "Yeah, the cracks are getting bigger, don't you think?" His lips twitched. Panic flickered across his face before he forced a laugh. That flicker, the tiniest acknowledgement of fear, made my chest burn with satisfaction. He had no idea who was behind it, no idea who was orchestrating the unraveling. Dinner was silent, tense. I let him dominate the conversation while I cataloged every twitch, every forced smile, every faltering word. The fire inside me roared, hotter and brighter than ever. Every injustice, every lie, every night I spent cowering, it had all led to this moment. By night, I saw the first major fallout. A key client pulled out, citing concerns about leadership. Panic, confusion, disbelief, all written across his face. And I felt alive, every nerve buzzing, heart pounding, blood on fire with anticipation. I leaned back in the chair, letting a soft, low laugh escape. The world was finally seeing him for what he was, a liar, a manipulator, a man who had underestimated me for too long. Tomorrow, Michael will face the consequences in person, not through whispers, not behind closed doors. The final exposure is coming. And when it happens, everyone he thought he controlled will finally see the truth. Part 10, The Final Reckoning. The morning news hit like a thunderclap. Michael's face, once flawless, now stared back from every screen. Michael Caldwell under investigation, major scandals uncovered. My chest tightened, pulse racing. A soft laugh escaped me, dangerous, electric, pure triumph. I watched the chaos unfold from my apartment. Calls, emails, messages, all frantic, all desperate. Michael ran through his schedule, charm and composure failing him at every turn. Every slip, every hesitation, every faltering smile made my fire roar louder. He finally arrived home, suit disheveled, eyes wild. Flowers in hand again, but this time they were meaningless. His grip on reality, on control, on me, all crumbling. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, voice strained, almost pleading. I looked at him, soft smile, eyes sharp, pulse steady. "Talk," I echoed. "Or beg." His jaw clenched. This isn't you. You're going too far." I stepped closer, letting the fire inside me radiate through every movement, every gaze. "Too far," I whispered. "Too far. Michael, I've been too small, too silent, too scared for years. But not anymore." He faltered, that once confident smirk gone. Panic replaced it, raw and human, and I savored it every second. I pressed a folder across the table, documents, photos, emails, everything he had tried to hide, carefully compiled, undeniable. "This is everyone seeing the truth. Your lies, your manipulations, your games." His hands shook as he picked it up, eyes wide, the weight of exposure finally sinking in. "Sarah, you can't." "I already did," I interrupted, voice soft but unstoppable. "And the world saw it first." Tears pricked his eyes, disbelief, frustration, panic, all colliding in a storm. I watched, calm, unbroken, fire still roaring inside me. The man who had held me captive with fear, who had manipulated everyone around him, was finally powerless. The flowers wilted on the counter. The soft hum of the city outside felt like applause. Every injustice, every sleepless night, every moment of pain had led to this. I felt lighter, sharper, alive. He sank into a chair, head in his hands, and for the first time I saw not the perfect man everyone adored, but a man undone by his own lies. And I felt satisfaction, deep and pure, a release I had craved for years. I stepped back, letting the silence stretch, letting him feel the weight of every choice, every betrayal, every lie. And then I smiled, softly, fiercely, finally free. The final domino had fallen, the mask shattered, and as the city outside buzzed with Michael's unraveling, I realized sometimes the quietest, most patient fire burns the hottest.